talk about Shoretel SIP and troubleshooting techniques. SIP is not specific to Shoretel, but I know a lot of you are interested in Shoretel, and we're going to talk about troubleshooting SIP. We'll look at some successful SIP, and we'll look at some unsuccessful and try to figure out why it didn't work. You need to understand that SIP is a call control protocol that runs at the application layer. It sends messages back and forth in the form of clear text, which is good news. That makes troubleshooting a bit easier because you can see what's going on. You obviously can't look at a Cat5 cable and see the packets, so you're going to need something like a packet capture tool. But once you get that up and running, you'll be able to see these messages. And once you understand the various requests and responses, everything in SIP is a request and a response. As a user agent, I may make a request to register with the SIP proxy, who will keep track of my location and my address. I may make an invite request, used when I want to make a phone call, for example. And once you understand the request and response dialogue, troubleshooting gets a little easier. Here's some of the typical request messages. If you really want to dig into the details, there's the RFCs. You can go chase that around and look at the detail underlying these requests. But generally, you're going to deal with invites, you're going to deal with registrations, you're going to deal with refers. Think of refer, by the way, as another way to say transfer. Become familiar with these. We'll take a look at them in wire capture, and you will get comfortable with it, and it will help you in your troubleshooting. Configuring SIP is not real hard, and troubleshooting, once you get the hang of the request response modes, you'll be able to troubleshoot SIP quite easily. Response messages, you can break them up into 6 categories. 1XX messages are messages that are telling you what's going on, like trying, like ringing. 2XX, that's good news. Usually 200 means we did what we wanted to do. 3 is redirect messages. These are messages that say the call's being referred someplace else. When we start getting up into 4, 5, and 6, now we're into the trouble area. So you see a 400 message, it's typically a client-side error, 500 at the server side, and 600 something at the global level. So a typical request looks like something like an invite. So in this example here, we have an invite from user 1 sending an invitation to user 2 at this IP address via this server. The to field, the from field, the caller ID. The call ID is more like a GUID in this example. Its method was an invite. The contact, the application type, the content length. This is a typical message stream. The response to this message might look something like this. We're getting an OK back. And we'll take a look at this in a Wireshark capture. I picked a particularly challenging configuration just to cover all the bases. I think that this is pretty typical. I point out to you from a technician and engineering perspective, configuring SIP is pretty simple. Bringing up a SIP trunk on a Shoretel switch or bringing up a SIP extension on a Shoretel switch, it's very simple. And we've got some video clips that'll show you how to do that. Um, but figuring out why something doesn't work is a little more complex. And I'm hoping that this explanation of request and response and Wireshark will help you sort that out. But I will tell you, invariably, the problem with a SIP trunk or a SIP extension has little to do with the configuration on the Shoretel. 99% of the time, that configuration is correct. People will set up their SIP extension, they'll configure their trunk group, they'll configure trunks, they'll put the trunks in the trunk group, everything will be just fine. But then they'll forget that they've got a firewall in the way, and that SIP is coming in over an internet connection that is also going through their firewall. And you've got NAT issues, you've got port forwarding, you've got a whole bunch of stuff going on with your firewall that are going to negatively impact your SIP trunk if you don't deal with it. You're also going to find that you will use a firewall sometimes in a SIP extension. So this is why on a SIP trunk you might want to consider using a session border controller. The session border controller is going to provide separation from your network. I mean, if we're extending our network out into the Wild West now, we need a way to find out where my network ends and the carrier's network begins. Secondly, sometimes the SIP we speak is a little different than the SIP the carrier speaks, and that SIP session border controller will do SIP normalization. In this example here, we're doing a SIP extension, but it's pretty complex. Let me tell you how this is laid out. I happen to be running on a Mac Pro. I'm a Linux freak. I prefer Macs. Windows when I have to. In this example here, I'm running a Mac Pro. My internal address is 172 subnet. On this Mac Pro, I'm running VMware Fusion. And on top of VMware Fusion, I'm running a Windows 7 PC. And that PC has an address of 192 subnet. And then inside this Windows, I'm running a Bria soft phone. Now, I recommend you get a Bria soft phone and you play with it. You go connect it to everything and anything that you can find to play with. It's a great soft phone. I think it's one of the better ones in the marketplace. They're cheap. They're free. There's a free version. There's a paid version. It can do video. It can do chat. It can do it all. And it's a great tool to have in your troubleshooting kit. But for this example, we've got Windows running on VMware on a Mac. We've brought up our Bria. We've configured the Bria. It is now pointing at a Shoretel Proxy, which is running on a ShoreGear switch. And you get there over a VPN tunnel. Now, in many cases, you're going to be doing this very configuration. So not only do we have one firewall in the place, I've got a Cisco ASA here, and it's speaking over the internet to a sonic wall, and it has created a site-to-site VPN tunnel. So right there, we've got a whole bunch of opportunities to have a problem with our connection. And so from the Bria, we want to register with the Shoretel Proxy. Let's take a look at that. First, just the Bria configuration. I told you it's pretty simple to configure, right? What do we need? We need the user ID, the extension number on the Shoretel. We need the domain. Domain in this case, guys, is another word for the IP address of the Shoretel Proxy, not the Shoretel headquarters server. We're looking for the Shoretel Proxy. We're looking for the ShoreGear switch that is going to proxy for my SIP extension. Then I'm looking for my password. Keep in mind in the user layout inside the Shoretel, you've got the client password. There is a field there for SIP passwords. That's the password we want here. The display, what do I want to display? Authentication name and extension are usually the same. And at that point, if we click OK, this puppy is going to endeavor to register with the Shoretel. So if you want to take a look at what that registration process was, if you go into the Shoretel director, I've got other video clips that go into this in detail. I didn't want to do it for this troubleshooting. Just go into the director, click on this guy here that says Diagnostic Monitoring. It'll pop up a new window with the Shoretel Diagnostic portal information. It's a great tool. Find the link that says Diagnostic, click on it. It'll bring you here, in which you'll see a list of your ShoreGear switches. Go ahead and select the switch that you want to do packet monitoring on and hit the apply button. Once you do that, it's going to pop up a window that looks something like this. It's going to ask you, what do you want to monitor? I typically change the 20, that is the default capture mode, to change it to something smaller like 5. You can let it run for 20 minutes maximum. 120 minutes maximum, or you can, interrupt it and say stop. I just hit it for 5. Down here, you're going to want to uncheck capture every packet. I don't want to capture every protocol on every packet, every protocol. I just want to capture SIP and TLS. So go check this box, go ahead and hit save, and the next thing you'll see, go place your test calls, do your registration, whatever it is, capture some packets, and ultimately you'll either stop that or it'll expire based on the time that you set, and it will list your packet capture here in this window. Know that these packet captures are also stored in the Shoretel data folder. You'll find a folder there for packet captures. You should have installed Wireshark on your Shoretel headquarters server. Go ahead and do that. And when you click on this link here to the right of the screen, where it says the name of the file, just click on that, and the next thing that will happen is Wireshark will load, and you'll be looking at packets. Other videos we've done show you how to manipulate the Wireshark capture. You can set a filter here for SIP, so I only see SIP. You can look for your statistics. You can search for media streams. Right now, we just want to look at this guy right here. What we can see is that there was a source address of 172.16.130. Now, if you were paying attention when I showed you the configuration, you'll recognize that that's the IP address of my Macintosh computer. 192.168.160 is the destination address of the Shoretel SIP proxy. So what you can see here is that the information here, this was a method of type type register. And if we click on this guy here, it's going to pop up another window that will have the packet information. And this is almost a review of your OSI model, right? So the first thing we see here are frame level. This is bits on the wire. And here's the Ethernet level, or level 2 of the OSI. You're going to see that here we're talking in frame addresses. Source address here is this MAC address, and the destination here for this Shoretel is, as you can see, 001049. That's a Shoretel MAC address. Then at level 3, we're at the IP level. And now we're talking about a source address, 172.16.130. Again, this was the Macintosh computer on which the Windows VMware was running. You might expect that the destination source address would have been the IP address of the Bria on the Mac, excuse me, on the Windows machine, but it's not. It's the Mac computer address. And the destination here again is 192.168.160, which is the Shoretel proxy server. And then at level 4, the transport layer here, we're talking ports now. And we can see here what source port was used and what destination port. So the destination port was a call setup, right? SIP is typically a setup, and it's done through port 5060, but it originated over here on port 54632. So at the next level, we're now dealing at the basically the application layer. We're looking at the SIP message itself, and you can see here this is a registration request. You can see that it came via, this is the, now look at this. Here we've got 192.168.215.170, which happens to be the address of the Windows, the virtual Windows machine running on the Mac VMware implementation. So the original source request here looks like it came from the Macintosh, but when we get down, the registration is showing us that it actually came here. This is the correct source address. And if you go through this, the contact information is generally, if you want to get back to this, go here. So it's 116, the extension number we set up on that soft phone at 172.16.1.30. Very interesting, the relationship here and here. The to field, this was in the display information set up in the Bria phone, and as you can see here, we're sending a request to 116 at 192.168.160. The display information, Gandalf, that's the name I used there. And the from address is here. Here we're talking an exchange between the SIP proxy. And so we got a successful registration, and then we saw that 200 message. And if we go back into Shoretel under IP phones here, individual IP phones, you'll see, if you list it out, you'll see the SIP rather than the MAC address. You'll see some other information here prefaced by this SIP. Okay, and it's typically a random number, and the MAC address of the device is in here someplace. You'll see that I have registered, and notice here that it thinks I'm at 192.168.215.170. Again, that's the virtual Windows machine on which the Bria was running. Also, if you click on this guy here, it pops up this message here, and you'll see the information that says the IP address of the Bria, which is 192.168.215.170. And again, I would point out that that's the soft phone running on the Windows machine that is sitting on the Macintosh computer in the 172 subnet. So down here in the contact field, it says if you want to get to this user agent, go here, 116 at 172.16.1.30. And the user agent is a Bria 3 blah, blah, blah phone. And the expiration and the address of record. In other words, where is this guy registered? Well, he's registered over here on the SIP proxy. So that takes you through the registration process, and you can see the various points at which you've got the potential for something to break. We'll take a look now at a fail situation and try to figure out, using the same configuration, why it failed. We've come to learn that if this same user is going to register from a different IP address, uh, we get some strange results, and we're going to take a look at that. At any rate, I hope you have found this informative, and I thank you for viewing.